Muted.
Good morning, everybody. Appreciate you joining me for what I hope will only be 15 to 20 minutes, if not even shorter than that, to discuss social media. As Kathy said, my name is John Grosso. For those of you that don't know me or haven't met me yet, I am the diocesan social media leader as well as the World Youth Day coordinator. Thank goodness that this webinar is not on World Youth Day. So I can put my social media hat on today, and we can discuss just very basics, about social media, and then I'd like to get into a little more detail specifically about advertising on social media, primarily on Facebook. If you have any Twitter questions, we can talk about that separately. It's a little more complicated. And then to speak about analytics and answer some of the questions that were sent out the past few days. So as you know, the diocesan social media presence is quite expansive. We have a Facebook, we have a Twitter, we have an Instagram, Snapchat, Flickr, YouTube, you name it, we probably have it. I definitely don't expect, nor would I want our schools to be on all of those sites, especially Snapchat. That's definitely not a school's item. But Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are going to be my primary focuses here. For sure, probably more Facebook than anything. The majority of you have a strong or a budding Facebook presence, so I think that we could all benefit from that the most. So first things first is we'll do what the bishop and I always call the lightning round of social media basics. First thing and the most important thing from this talk, if you take away nothing else, would be the number one thing that you have to have in mind when posting on social media or really any form of digital media is your tone, your objectives, and your goals. Social media is it's like the Wild West, and if you do not have a focus in mind, you can get off track and off message pretty quickly. The other thing I'd like for you to remember is that social media is a forum, not a soapbox, nor is it a pedestal. When you're on social media, it's not an extension of your website to push out the content you want people to see. If that's why you're on it, then unfortunately, I hate to break it to you, but that's just not what we're going to do. It's primarily a forum. So what we're trying to do in everything we post is to provide an outlet for people to discuss, to join us, and to market what we'd like to market. So the next sort of lightning round objective here is posting scheduled times and information. That's something that we got a lot of questions on, and there's no one-size-fits-all answer to that, but I can give you some tips. And the first thing is I would strongly recommend that you post on Facebook and definitely on Twitter at least once a day, and no more than 3 to 5 times a day. 3 to 5 times is overkill. The diocese doesn't even post quite that much. So really, once a day, provided you have content. I would not go any further than 2 or 3 days without having content. I mean, social media is all about what have you done for me lately, and if people want to see that your page and that therefore your organization is vibrant and active and warm and welcoming, and posting once a day generally does that. As far as timing goes, before work, at a lunch break, or after work is generally what works for us. So 8 to 9 a.m., noon to 12:30, and 5, and believe it or not, actually, the most people are online from about 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. For your school pages, the 3 o'clock to 3:30 time slot would probably be beneficial because parents are home picking up their kids, some of them at least. The kids are out, and you have a general sort of a focus going on right around then, so I would investigate that. As far as platforms go, like I said before, they each serve a separate objective, so I would encourage you to be on multiple platforms on social media. And that's to say, if you have a Facebook, you should probably also have a Twitter. They serve totally different demographics at this point. Facebook primarily skews towards middle-aged and middle-aged females, whereas Twitter skews towards young adults and 30 to 35 male. So to have both of them working in tandem is always good. They also serve different purposes. Your Facebook is really your way to highlight and advertise the very best aspects of your school. So your pictures and your videos, that's what's going to be hosted on Facebook. Facebook is more of a forum where people will land and have more of a conversation, whereas Twitter is sort of your quick hits. And it's 140 characters for now. That's going to change. And Twitter's objective is to push out news fast and to get rapid reactions to that news. So I would recommend, if you have the ability, to be on both, especially for our high schools. Now, our elementary and our middle schools, I definitely understand not being on Twitter because sometimes your demographic is not quite on there, but I would investigate it. The other thing here I would like to say is, speaking from a personal experience, I do think the majority of schools would benefit from an Instagram. The reason I say that is, well, yes, it does serve a demographic, generally a younger demographic. It is exploding right now. It's really the only social media site that is growing at the moment. Facebook is just, everybody's on it, and Twitter is stagnating, but Instagram is exploding. And every post that I've ever done that's been schools focused has gotten tons of likes and tons of shares. So Instagram takes a while to cultivate. We're only at about 561 followers, and we've launched roughly 8 months ago. So it takes a little while, and that's to do with Instagram's internal service and all that stuff. But I would encourage you to investigate that. So out of the lightning round, I think it's important now to discuss effective posting. The number one question that I get, and definitely a highlight in your questions, was how do you post effectively? What works? What doesn't? How can you even tell? Really, the blanket statement that I can make for this is pictures and videos. Pictures and videos do the best, period, end of story. Just a regular status update is something, if you follow the diocesan pages, we do very rarely. It's generally the Friday afternoon, have a good weekend post. That's just a status update. I would encourage you to add a picture, a relevant picture, to everything that you post. If it doesn't have a picture, try to find one, or maybe not post that. I mean, it's actually incredible when you look at the statistics of what people are looking at. And generally speaking, they see a picture, they see a video, they'll pause. And social media is all about getting someone's attention in this sort of media overload world that we live in. So that's definitely a huge component of it. But really, the secret to effective posting is in every post that you do, in every thing that you'd like to get out there or a conversation you'd like to start, consider what your objective is and consider what your goal is, what we talked about before. If your goal is to reach out to alumni, great. Make sure you have a tailored post or some language that achieves that does it. For us, on the diocesan level, my objective and my goal, which are sort of two separate things here, is to, one, demonstrate that the diocese is a warm and welcoming and open environment that's vibrant and growing. And my goal is to bring people back to the Catholic Church by that means. So in everything I post, I mean, it sounds silly when you look at some of the things that we post, it all serves a purpose. It's all a cog in the machine to get that to happen. So as long as you don't lose sight of what you're trying to achieve, the posting generally can come naturally. If you're trying to increase enrollment, that you're really trying to do almost the same thing that we're doing on the diocesan level. So it's that warm and that open and that inviting atmosphere. You're portraying your school as the place to be. And that's really the quote-unquote secret to effective posting, that and pictures, like I said before. And finally, relevant posts. I can't tell you this enough, and I will call Catholic Charities out here on this, not their actual website, but their programs on social media can kind of get off topic. They can post memes and funny gossip stories, cultural events. That will get you nowhere. It might be a couple of quick likes, but it is not a sustainable long-term strategy. So you want to post about your school, about your events, about feel-good stories that are happening. I mean, there's no shortage of information and activities going on in our diocesan schools. I know that firsthand. So, keep it relevant, but also keep it fun. Social media, whenever I go and talk about it, I tell people, generally that can kind of get a little bit upset. You got to let your hair down. You got to have some fun with it. You really do. I mean, we run the gamut of very serious issues here in the diocese, but then again, we'll also post something like myself and Monsignor Powers having a bet about the BC Notre Dame football game. or the communications office played a little hooky to go get ice cream. Believe it or not, this is not a website. This is not your paper. Social media exists to let your hair down, and it exists to have a little fun. And in that vein, if you're on Twitter, the use of relevant hashtags is also a way to effective post. Your Wisdom Wednesday, your Throwback Thursday, Motivation Monday. Facebook, I would encourage you not to use hashtags. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it actually makes your page a little less professional looking. It's just the way that it's sort of played out here. But with the Facebook version of relevant hashtags is to see what's trending and what people are talking about, because Facebook automatically identifies that via the language. The next question that I get from parishes, schools, anybody is actually the number 2 question, is how do I manage negative posts? And that is a great question, and my answer is going to be counterintuitive. You don't, really. The thing is, with social media, as I said before, it's a forum. So you're going to get negative posts, and I manage the Bishop's page, and we get some of the most positive, heartwarming posts that you'll ever see. And then we also get things that make me lose faith in humanity. And that's okay, because when you open yourself up to social media, you open up yourself to those kind of comments. Now, if they're vulgar, or if they're aggressive, or if they violate any of your policies, then you would delete them and block the person, and you would have no further contact with them, and that's okay. But if it's negative about something that the school at large did, or about a policy that they weren't really a fan of, what I would encourage you to do is reach out to that person, comment below, and say, I'm sorry you feel this way. Can you please direct message us and we'll talk about it? Now, I know that's going to open yourself up to unpleasant dialogue, and again, I'm the World Youth Day coordinator, so that's nothing. I get nothing but that. But it is enormously effective in outreach, evangelization, and demonstrating that warm and welcoming environment, because people will see that and they say, wow, okay, they're not ignoring these negative comments. This is not just an echo chamber for positivity. They're really willing to deal with the tough questions and give the tough answers. Now, if that person continues to comment publicly, then I would disengage. But you always offer somebody that first outreach, unless, of course, they're really crazy, to use a technical term. That's up to your discretion. Entirely up to your discretion. But when we get a negative comment and it's not openly hostile, that's generally how I handle it, and for the most part it works. And if it doesn't, then I disengage, and if it escalates, then I block. And that's generally what we do. Now, if you get something that's targeting a specific teacher, a specific student, then that is cause for blocking. You wouldn't engage with somebody like that. That's to call somebody out on a public forum is not acceptable. Yeah, that would be a violation. So next up on the list is Facebook advertising, and again, I'm open to talking about Twitter advertising, and as of yesterday, the diocese just had its first foray into Instagram advertising. So I'm happy to talk about that maybe offline sometime. Facebook advertising is something I'd like to spend a fair bit of time on because it's very exciting, at least it is in the social media world, for a number of reasons. One, it's highly effective. Highly, highly, highly effective. And 2, it's very cheap. Oftentimes, it can be 10 to maybe as much as 30, 35 cents per engagement, and sometimes even less. You can target specific areas, demographics, ages, interests with these Facebook ads and these Facebook promotions, and we'll get more into the actual technical Facebook promotions later. But you can target almost anybody you want. The sky is the limit. Now, I used this example with Kathy earlier before we jumped on. We promoted the Bishop's page, and what that is I'll explain it in a second. But we promoted his page for $10 a day over the course of a month. Well, really about February 3rd to February 29th. And in that promotion, like I said, $10 a day, we increased 1,293 likes. Just from that promotion, just $10 a day. So we went, we are now at about 5,300 total for the Bishop's page, just for the Bishop's page. And what that does is likes are cumulative on social media. So the more you get, the faster you grow. So we're looking at my expectations and my growth charts is potentially getting him to about 10,000 likes by the end of this year. That's my goal, and I think we're going to be able to do it, which is huge because it opens up a wealth of different opportunities and options. It allows us, 1, to evangelize more, 2, for our message to get out more, and 3, for our events to be more successful because the Bishop will be promoting our events. So I cannot emphasize Facebook advertising enough. It's cheap. I know that that sometimes times are a little bit tough, but if you have money in the budget, I would do it. If that's the way that you want to double likes or you want to increase your engagements, it's really a twofold strategy. One, better your posting and make it relevant and fun. Two, advertise. The relevant posting will ultimately be the #1 most important thing, but if you want to move fast, advertising. Because actually what Facebook does is it neuters your page. If you don't pay for it, Facebook obviously, as you know, is free. But if you don't pay to advertise, Facebook actually subdues your reach. It caps your reach and it caps your ability. So as soon as you pay $1, $2, $3, $5, you completely open up the floodgates, and you'll see that happen. And for your schools, you can target your specific towns. So if you don't want to waste money targeting, somewhere in Bridgeport, if you're a school in Ridgefield, that's fine, or vice versa. You can target your immediate area, so you're not stepping on our other schools' toes, and you're keeping it within your demographic. And you'd be surprised at the amount of people that are on Facebook. 73% of all American adults are on Facebook. 73%. And I know those numbers are even higher for Connecticut. So I would encourage you to advertise. Now, there are many different ways that you can advertise. I had mentioned promoting a page. That's pretty straightforward. And again, I'm happy to speak with any of you offline to actually technically discuss it. But it's just a boost post button on the side of your page, or it'll be a boost page button. And you set the budget, you set the days, the parameters, and you're off to the races. It approves your ad, and there you go. Now, you can actually boost individual posts as well, and we do that. We did that for the youth choir to get that really, off the ground, and for the youth concert. And boy, did it work. I mean, we ended up selling out that place within days after we did that. The boosting posts can be a little tricky because sometimes those ads will get rejected. I noticed that in a couple of our comments here. Now, they get rejected for a number of reasons, but the major reason is you need an 80-20 split. 80% of your ad needs to be a graphic, and 20% needs to be text. So really, you're looking at a sentence to maximum for these ads. So when you're boosting a post, you're relying very heavily on imagery, and you can boost the video as well. You can actually boost an individual status update, but for whatever reason, if you have a paragraph of text and a picture, Facebook won't boost it. I mean, their reasoning is generally because they cap the text at a certain point, and so you see sort of a ... and they don't want to worry about that. But regardless, that's the reason that some of your ads are getting rejected. Also, you can't use specific age ranges, and there's obviously bits and pieces of language that you wouldn't otherwise know that get identified when an ad gets rejected, but Facebook always notifies you why. So I would encourage you to follow up with that. There is also many different ways that you can promote Facebook beyond just promoting individual posts and pages. You can promote downloads to an app, clicks to a website, clicks to a video. You can advertise on Instagram now, as I alluded to before. There's so much you can do here. It's really tremendous. It's really, really tremendous. And like I said, it's very cost effective. Now, Twitter advertising is a little less effective, but I would still encourage you to look into it. Now, again, I know that not all of you are on Twitter, but the bottom line here is, for any platform in general, you're like I said before, your twofold strategy is relevant posting and fun posting and advertising. So your promotions increase your followers, generally speaking, and from your followers, it's cumulative. You can build your social media and digital media strategy from an increase in followers, and that was my major focus when I took this job, was increasing our followers across all of our platforms and then launching the relevant platforms. So now that we have a pretty strong base, I'm pushing into different environments and different areas to grow our followers beyond the base that we have. And then we're kind of having a little more fun and experimenting with things on social media. We rolled out a Snapchat, and it hasn't been wildly successful. We have about 100 followers on it, but it's good. It's something that we're experimenting with. We're the only diocese in the country that has one. So really, this took a year. This took a year of building your followers. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen quickly. So I encourage you to be patient. I encourage you to focus on advertising. And if anybody has any direct questions, Kathy will be sure to distribute my information if she hasn't already. you can give me a call, you can send me an email, I can set up a face-to-face, try to make it to your school, and we can talk about it. I have no problem in helping you out there. Now, the next logical point, and we're coming down to the end here, is after advertising, analytics. Now, Facebook analytics are awesome because they're free, and they're in-depth to the point where they're almost a little like creepily in-depth because it's a little big brothery. You should see, if you think Facebook analytics is bad, you should see Twitter. Twitter's even worse. But Facebook, you can see everything. You can see when your people are online, your followers. So you can gather what times to post based on that. You can see how many people you're reaching. You can see how many engagements you have, clicks on a specific post, what posts work and what posts don't. You can see your age demographics. You can see your gender demographics, race demographics, local demographics. You can see everything on Facebook. It's in the Insights tab on your page. So you would go to that Facebook, you would go to Insights, and it's all there. And that's generally how you tailor your advertising. So if your objective is maybe, you know what, we should cultivate our alumni market, you can, in your ad set, you can target the alumni age range that you're trying to reach and the gender, and then you would go back to your Insights and see if it's working, what your current breakdown is. Maybe you want to target alumni, but maybe that's actually your majority, the lion's share of your followers. So maybe instead of targeting alumni, you would target current students and current parents. It's all there. The two work hand in hand. The next, and we can talk more about analytics offline because you can spend days and days and days on them. But the next sort of, and the last major topic I have is the individual questions that I've seen that I haven't addressed in this presentation. The first thing is parental concerns, which are valid no matter what. So if a parent doesn't want their child on social media, then we have to respect their wishes. As far as the diocese goes, as we are more of a post first and ask questions and ask for forgiveness later. Generally speaking, if they're at a public event, it's fair game. But if you're in a classroom setting or an auditorium setting or something like that, I would do your best to ask parents for permission. Now, if you're on a field trip and you're at a large diocesan event or Breakfast of Champions, fair game, totally fair game. That's a public event. I will be there all over. And if a parent reaches out to you individually saying, hey, I really don't want my child up there, that's fine. Totally, totally fine. You just take the picture down, and it's no problem. It's a little trickier, like I said, for schools than it is for the diocese. Like I said, we kind of just post, and then whatever happens, happens. And believe it or not, between you and me, that's what we do for our newspaper as well. But regardless, I think it's a valid concern to have. I wouldn't make it your only concern. For World Youth Day, I know we have people sign off on allowing their image to be used just to cover ourselves. That might be something you'd want to investigate. And the last question is sort of the overarching theme of the talk is how do I get more likes? And it's like I said before, it's all about the content. If you have good content, they'll come. They just will. People will share your post. People will comment and like it. It'll show up in other people's news feeds, and they'll get it. And then, of course, as we talked about lengthily before, advertising helps as well. So if there's any other questions, I encourage you to use the chat feature here. I tried to cover as much as I could based on the responses, and I'm more than happy to answer anything now for a little bit.